I enjoy pairing life experiences with reading experiences. Matching cozy autumnal books with a cozy autumnal trip can turn a mediocre book into a favorite one. Reading a mystery book while enjoying a fall themed treat, or reading a book about the wild in the woods while sitting under a tree of changing leaves, or reading a ghost story during an autumn thunderstorm solidifies those books to be as memorable as the trip experience itself. I recently had the pleasure of taking a trip into the woods in our camper and was particular about which books to bring along to savor. Prose and Cons by Amanda Flower is the second book in the Magical Bookshop series that she writes. It's set in October, and in Cascade Springs, Amanda Flower says a lot of other villages will do Oktoberfests, but they are doing a food and wine festival. She said it was as if the entire town was fringed in gold, bronze, and scarlet, and any gap in color was more than made up for by the village groundskeepers, who coddled the village's public green spaces with unadulterated devotion. The planters and gardens overflowed with mums and asters of every color. And she goes on to describe the beauty that is in Cascade Springs. In this, we follow Violet. She is the granddaughter of Daisy. They co-own the Charming Books bookshop, which there is some magical realism in this book in that a tree, birch tree, that is growing in the middle of the bookshop has magical abilities. And it's not extreme, it's not a big fantasy world building type of a novel, but the tree just infuses the bookshop with the ability to know when a book is meant for a certain person, and it also uses books to give messages to Daisy and Violet. I love the cover so very much. It has Emerson, he is the Tuxie cat, and it also has Faulkner, who is a crow, who actually thinks that he is a raven. So that reminds me, one of the beautiful things that Amanda Flower does in her cozy mysteries is she brings in a literary aspect. And so in this one, in the second book, she brings in the stories and poetry of Edgar Allan Poe, and she utilizes those tales to help build a story. And I love that about this. One of the people who watched a video that in which I mentioned this series before let me know that Amanda Flower was a librarian, and so she's able to infuse all of her stories with this literary aspect, and it just brings a depth to it that I love. You guys, I was so close to figuring out who did it in Prose and Cons. So close. I even told my husband about the whole entire plot and talked it through with him, and I was like, I don't know if it's this person or this person. And then I settled on one person, and I was wrong, but I really was close. So I really do love Amanda Flower's series. I definitely am invested and want to read the next one in the series. I will say, if romance is your thing, it is very side part of the plot. And in this, it really doesn't advance much. In fact, I think the triangle gets played longer and drawn out more, which is not my favorite trope to have of the love triangle, but it worked, and I really do enjoy Violet as a main character. I like how Amanda Flower has other parts of the main character's life sort of having mystery and having intrigue, and seeing how all of those puzzle pieces fit. You get invested and want to know what's going to happen, and you really do keep wanting to pick it up and thinking about who could have done it. And so I really recommend it. This second one with Edgar Allan Poe featuring so strongly, I think is a perfect read for October. So I'm really glad that I was able to read it during this time in the woods. I am starting The Sugar Queen by Sarah Addison Allen. I have read a couple of her books and have really enjoyed the coziness that they have. There's a little bit of heavier themes in them, but for the most part, she's pretty cozy. So in The Sugar Queen, we follow Josie Serini. Josie is at the beck and call of her elderly mother. Her father passed away years ago, and so Josie is really in this very affluent Victorian home with her mother. They have a staff that support them. Her father actually came to this area in North Carolina and established a ski resort, which then made their family be one of the wealthiest families, if not the wealthiest family in the town. And Josie is discovering that there may be more to what she wants out of life than just taking care of her mother, and that is because of the arrival of someone named Della, who mysteriously enters into her bedroom, finds a secret closet that Josie has in her room, and Della sort of squats there. And she has something, a little bit of a hold over Josie that makes Josie not want to divulge Della's existence in the house, and they manage to kind of keep this clandestine arrangement going for quite a while. So I'm excited to see the coziness that Sarah Addison Allen can create in this fall themed book. I have finished The Sugar Queen. My understanding is this is her second book, so it looks like she wrote Garden Spells first, which I've talked about before on my channel, and then she actually wrote a sequel to that apparently she wrote after this. So there actually are really intense, mature themes in The Sugar Queen. Our main character, Josie, uses food as a comfort tool. She actually talks about the comfort that eating food brings and that she has to do it in secret a lot. As the book progresses, she's met a character, Della Lee, who she knows from in her town, who's a troublemaker, who really encourages her to get out of her shell and to think more about what Josie would want versus what the mother wants or even the town. So as we kind of unpack the needs that she has with eating and what she's fulfilling there are also other characters that end up involved that are within the town. And we really just get to know these basically 3 or 4 young people and then their families. Also, it's not spicy, but there is pretty explicit language, and it's very brief. It's like a sentence or two that, something that a couple has done together. It's not spicy per se, but it is very much an adult novel. And I don't remember Garden Spells and First Frost being that way. I remember them being, having some romance and coziness. This is cozy. It talks about the fall weather. It talks about snow a lot and kind of the coldness in the town as far as like the weather. So it very much is a fall themed book, but just if you do decide to read this, realize that it is an adult novel with very mature themes, some pretty serious topics, and a much heavier adult novel than anything else that I have read by Sarah Addison Allen. October by Katya Balin is a middle grade novel. In this we follow October and her dad. They live in the woods and they are very self-sufficient, and one night they find an owl that has been injured and is dead. And it's very traumatizing, but through the process, they end up discovering a baby owl. And so October gets to take this baby owl home. And I love the creativity in the printing in this book where, as she's thinking about a name for her new baby owl, it's just very aesthetically pleasing. There are also illustrations by Angela Harding, and the illustrations are actually just lovely with this. Here's a picture of the owl with the black and white photos. I love how aesthetic this is. And I am fully expecting the language in this to be beautifully written and really descriptive. And so I am out in the woods hoping to find some beautiful fall foliage to sit under and just enjoy this book. So beautiful. I finished October. I was right, the language is very lyrical and beautiful and very creative in how it's written on the page, and I loved that about it. This story is middle grade, so in this, October is very much a wild and free child. Her dad ends up having an accident where he gets severely injured, and so he needs to go to the hospital, and she needs to then not be living in the woods on her own and being self-sufficient. And so she ends up having to go to London. And I loved the description of her physiological reaction to going from the quiet in the woods and the peacefulness that she found in the forest to the chaos and the noise and the brightness of a city like London. And I thought that Katya Balin did such a great job describing that. It almost feels like October is a neurodivergent child, just in her processing. But I mean, it could also just be a function of she's been living just with her dad and just hadn't learned how any sort of coping mechanisms for dealing with the challenges that she faced. I loved the resolution at the end of this. I loved how she developed friendships of children her own age. I love the arc that was her family unit with her mother's role in addition to her father's healing and process there, and then of course October's growth. There actually was a little bit of historical fiction in here, which I also really loved, and so this is fast became one of my favorite middle grade books of the year. Any of these books would be perfect for the month of October. As I mentioned, Prose and Cons is set in October and is Halloween time frame. Sugar Queen is also very cold and autumnal feeling. October begins in October. She's named after the month that she's born in. And with that wildwood setting, it just also really feels like that perfect autumnal aesthetic. So I hope you are able to pack some books in a book bag and get outside to read. And whether that is being able to get out here in the woods, or whether it's finding a tree in the city that is just beautiful and you're able to enjoy the colors and the vitality and all of the changes that are happening outside right now. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.